That's a very good point, actually. And here we can continue again with some facts. They are aware of the impact of culture on growth, on profit, on innovation, on so many of the KPIs they follow. And now this is clear thanks to research. It's not just a matter of our gut feeling or our common sense that culture plays a role in all this. The link has been proven, and leaders are aware of that. On top of being aware of this link, it seems that most leaders realize that their culture is not where it should be in order to support in the best possible way the strategic objectives and the strategic priority of their organizations. So they realize there is a gap and they want to bridge this gap. Now, this is true, and it is very, I mean, it really hits hard as a realization when organizations are in critical moments in their trajectory. And usually these critical moments for organizations have to do with change, they have to do with transformation, and digital transformation is definitely one of those moments. However, as we have already started discussing, despite being aware of the impact of culture, of the gaps that exist and that would add value if they were closed, very often leaders and organizations don't prioritize actually managing the culture, at least during the design or implementation phase of transformations. For example, like our topic today, digital transformations. They often come and try to manage culture like reactively, not proactively. So when culture has become a barrier, or when the whole project of change and transformation is at risk because culture, which basically means ways of working, practices, the mindset shared in the organization, doesn't help. So then the question is, why is that happening? We have gathered some phrases here that I think maybe all of us have heard or even said at points. For example, we very often hear that our culture doesn't help us in achieving this or achieving that. But what does that really mean? What would it look like? What should it look like in order to help us? Or we very often hear that we should be more innovative, for example. But in that case, what is stopping us? Or what are we missing? And sometimes we often hear things that might not be easy to balance. For example, an organization wants to be more innovative, and at the same time, it wants to prioritize, for example, adhering to procedures. So can these two things exist together? What's the balance? Very often we hear organizations that say, okay, let's hire a director or another role and get someone on board with a different mentality. But is that relevant? Is it something that has to do with individuals, or is it about teams, or even something broader when we're thinking about shifting the culture? Very often leaders complain that the people don't have the right mindset in the organization. And in this case, the question is, what does that mean exactly again? But also, if that's the case, how can we shift it? How can we enable and engage people and make them change the way they are used to thinking or are used to doing things? And sometimes, which is again as important or even more, we find that some leaders in an organization themselves, they don't walk the talk. So in that case, you cannot expect people to follow or to change behaviors if their leaders don't demonstrate these behaviors. And other things, like for example, sometimes like it feels like there are two companies in here, right? So you have different subcultures in an organization, and then the question is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? It could be useful as well. So we think that this is a key factor in why cultural management often stays behind, right? So the good news is, and we're going to go into solutions because I think that's our main focus here today. The good news is that today there are some very good approaches available to organizations for actually managing the culture as they do other parts of their business.